Hey guys, Stock Saturday. Slightly brief video today because, well, partly because there isn't that much news, but also because I've got my summer cold, as always seems to come around this time. But yeah, down about 2% for the week, about 7,000 I think on the total amount, although I have added 4,000 early in the week to make this look sort of slightly less bad, but you can't include deposits in the return, in my opinion. So yeah, not horrendous compared to the S&P. I've done slightly better than the S&P, down 2.36% for sort of little decline for quite a while, since sort of April really. Don't count this sort of tiny one in May as particularly much of a decline. And the Nasdaq a little bit worse, 4.31%. So yeah, not great for the big tech. This seems to be partly led by Nvidia. They're sort of looking like they're dropping off the back of Donald Trump comments potentially. We can't see too much other sort of else in the way of news. No earnings or anything to speak of, and yeah, it seems to be sort of Trump's comments about Taiwan basically defending themselves, which is a vital cog in the semiconductor supply chain. I believe, I don't think Nvidia are using Samsung or Intel at all, so pretty much every one of Nvidia's chips for AI or GPUs or anything all come from TSMC. So yeah, if something were to happen to them, Trump sort of doesn't seem willing to help defend them anymore, then obviously Nvidia's business, I wouldn't say goes out the window, but there would be a sort of mass panic to try and get Samsung up to speed. So this had a bit of a knock-on effect on your Broadcoms, your AMD, Intel. Intel down 5.42% on the day, and sort of other stocks as well. So yeah, that seems to have caused a fair bit and has just sort of resulted in some general Nasdaq selling. I wouldn't say we've had too much in the way of news to cause too much else. So yeah, interesting. In amongst this, we did have TSMC's earnings, which look fairly good across the board, I would say. They start with the balance sheet as always, and cash equivalents up to 1.8 trillion new Taiwan dollars. This is. I always have to sort of get my bearings on where they are. So obviously it's like 30 times the value of US dollars. So yeah, 1.8 trillion up from 1.698 trillion and 1.27 this quarter last year. So very, very nice. Most of the other current assets way up from last year. Property, plant and equipment slightly up. They're not exactly sort of piling money into new facilities. Obviously the US one's still progressing, but they had some setbacks and that sort of thing, so it hasn't grown a huge amount, and you'll get sort of depreciation as well. But yeah, nice to see property, plant and equipment over 3 trillion, and bonds payable increasing ever so slightly. So cash has obviously gone up way more than that. That's not really an issue at all. And the long term, yeah, so that was long-term bonds, and the current portion of bonds has increased ever so slightly. But yeah, overall, not a huge issue. Total liabilities up 40 million, and just cash is up by 100 million. And looking at the income statement, all looking rather nice. 673 billion in revenue compared to 592 just a quarter ago, and 480 this time last year. It's sort of been shown on the monthly reports. Knew this was going to be good. You do get the news sort of before the news with TSMC. Yeah, so gross profit also up. Research and development up a little, but not too much. So they're getting this extra revenue without a big increase in R&D. And yeah, a little bit of income from the cash as well. It's quite nice. 18 billion, sorry, up from 10.6 billion last year. So not too bad. And yeah, net income up 247 billion, up from 225 and 181 last year. So yeah, whether you think the big run up in the share price is worth it, I still do. They're still at sort of far lower PEs for sort of pushing out this sort of profit compared to the competitors. So yeah, 36.8% net profit margin and 53% gross is all good. Just looking at their presentation, they do sort of give just sort of measuring their figures against guidance. They were guiding for 19.6 to 20.4 billion, that's US dollars in revenue, and they got 20.82, so that's quite a beat. They were guiding 51 to 53% gross margin, and they got 53.2, and same on operating margins. So everything was a slight beat. Just noting the technology as well, 3 nanometer obviously increasing quite a lot. It was sort of bigger in Q4 2023. I would imagine that is because of iPhone production, and yeah, second quarter now sort of ramping up as expected. And then by use case, HPC, high performance computing, obviously taking a large part of this. This is your Nvidia side, smartphones sort of down a little bit, and yeah, consumer electronics sort of doing reasonably well, and sort of your other categories in the single figures, so not too bad there. And then the guidance revenue to be 22.4 billion and 23.2 billion. So on the higher side, that's over 10% revenue growth just in one quarter. So very, very nice. And gross profit to be between 53.5 and 55.5. So that is rising. Operating profit 42.5 to 44.5. So these margins are getting very nice. Obviously competition for TSMC's chips. You got Apple sort of as a big competitor, potentially Microsoft and Google pushing to use their own even more, and while they're all giving a fortune to Nvidia. So profits should be pretty good over the next year, I would have thought. We've started to get a bit more volatility in the gold market. We've sort of been a little bit flat for a few months, and it's sort of just suddenly taken off, rocketed up to 24.70, 24.82 before coming back quite sharply. I think it was about $55 down on the Friday. So yeah, we'll have to see whether that was just a slap down, sort of a temporary, pullback. If that's sort of where we've bottomed potentially, then not too bad. Ready for another run up. Does seem to be sort of doing this stair step. It was certainly doing it at the beginning of the year. Sort of stair step up, a little bit of consolidation, stair step up, longer consolidation. We'll have to see. Silver looks a little bit worse. Sort of didn't get a new high. Broke up to 31.30 and was sort of just touching $32, and is now back down to 29.23. But we'll have to see where that goes. Iron ore ticking down again. So the base metal miners are having sort of a little bit of a downturn again. Nothing too drastic, still 108, but we would obviously like that higher. And copper sort of continuing its downtrend sort of towards $4, I guess. 4.24 at the moment, and it was sort of 5.10 up at the highs, but that was, from what I gather, largely driven by derivatives. So again, you sort of look at the long term. If it's coming down to sort of between 4 and 4.25 as a base, potentially then to go up a bit more, that would be fine. And sort of compared to costs, even the most sort of, from what I understand, the more expensive miners are sort of in the low $3 range of costs, with a lot of the big boys in the sort of $1.50 to $2 costs. So 425, they're fine. I know I was sort of saying 450, they're fine. 475, they're fine. But I do think you have to take a bit of a longer term view with this. So, economic news, we had sort of quite a mixed bag. US retail sales looking quite strong, 0.4% on the core. It's quite a bit higher than expected. And retail headline retail sales was flat, and it was expected to be down. So 0.3% better across the board from expectations. Wednesday we had UK inflation, a little bit worse across the board than expected, pretty much 0.1% everywhere. EU inflation for June, sort of all in line, not really coming down a huge amount. Thursday you had a little bit more UK news. Average earnings, including bonuses, still 5.7% up on last year. It's a little bit down from the previous month, but we're trying to get to 2% inflation, and you've got wages up 5.7% year on year. And we're not a production-based economy, we are services-based economy, so yeah, that doesn't help bring inflation down. And unemployment at 4.4% is sort of okay. It's not drastic, so yeah, don't know whether we will get that rate cut. But then you did see retail sales for the UK, so US was looking pretty good. UK is looking quite awful. People not buying a huge amount, whether it's just a monthly one-off, we don't know, because sort of core year on year was 1.6% in the green last month, and it's dropped to 0.8% down. So for a year on year figure, that is quite drastic. The monthly figures sort of even more stark, and headline sort of is even further apart. Looking at the portfolio then, so there's been sort of a little bit of change in prices and sort of what my top holdings are. I've not made any changes at all to these. Any dividends that come out generally get moved into the ISA and not sort of reinvested here, because it's just, complicating things, and I've got about 3,000 of spare room left in the ISA, so just been putting dividends in there, and sort of we'll see how much I have to top it up to max it out by April. But yeah, you can see Stellantis has dropped down quite a bit, and sort of Broadcom and TSMC are fighting over top holding. It's currently TSMC. They're sort of rather resilient, I would say, especially off the back of strong earnings, even if Nvidia and the others are coming down. We don't really know what will happen with if Trump gets in and what he's going to do with them, but who knows? Somebody else might protect them, maybe. Yeah, and the other holdings sort of aren't really moving huge amounts. Sort of Vanguard Emerging Markets for me keeps being up and down below 10,000. Might be something that I would use for other purposes still at some point. I'll have to see. So the ISA side is actually 10,000 up on the week, despite me being down overall. This is largely due to CleanSpark and Riot Platforms. Hive as well, sort of having a nice little green, and he sort of bought that last week. That's 21% up, but obviously only a small position. Gold and silver sort of coming down slightly, especially off the back of sort of the Friday's move, although they didn't really drop on the Friday, but sort of, I don't know whether it was in anticipation, but they've been dropping sort of midweek, and I don't know, maybe we'll see more sort of in the coming week, maybe a bit more reaction to that drop, or people are just looking forward and seeing it as a correction and saying, I want a bit of gold. On the interactive brokers side, seeing a fair bit of drop on KGHM. Obviously not hugely surprising, seeing that copper price, and silver dropping as well. Silver not doing particularly well, but yeah, still 17.8% in the green. That's fine. It's a long-term holding, I would think. And then on the invest side, Chinese tech obviously sort of barely moving, despite them doing rather a fortune in buybacks, but we'll have to see. On the option side, this is where I've been putting quite a lot in. So I had 4,000 cash last week, and I'm now at 750 quid. Thinking of putting, well, most likely be putting another 4,000 in today, ready for, well, ready, it will probably be Tuesday by the time it clears, but we'll have to see. This is still sort of where I see the best value potentially if things are sort of going to play out over the next year and a half, as I'm expecting. I have put most of this money into Equinox over the last sort of few days, although I did increase my Hive position from, I think it was 10 contracts to 45. So yeah, that has had quite a bit actually. It's up 34%, so it's doing pretty well. I maybe should have sort of topped up more when it was a bit lower. Sort of short-term buying has been quite poor at the moment. It always is. I'm sort of buying Equinox at $65 dollars per contract. These are $10 January 2026 options, so betting that the price is going to be significantly above $10 before January 2026. And yeah, I'm up to some of those are 2025 actually, but yeah, about 450 sort of on the long term. High max sort of not really touched at all. That's just come down. Nothing too bad though. Coeur mining sort of coming down again, a little off the back of the silver move. That tends to react more to silver than it does gold, it seems. Clean Spark rising up a little with the rise this week. And yeah, Core Scientific just continues to weather the storm, it seems. Riot as well seems to have sort of certainly bottomed when it was about sort of $9 or so. It's not sort of corrected anywhere near that, even on sort of the moves down earlier in the week for Bitcoin, and it's way up now. So would think that's bottomed. I never really topped up a position. I'm at sort of 5 contracts for end of or January 2026 now. So yeah, never really became a position. I'd ended up going for Hive instead and didn't even top that up sort of as much as I was hoping. But we'll see. Maybe there's still opportunity to buy a little bit more. As I say, I'll probably be putting about 4,000 in. I've got a little bit of money on the sidelines. I will still have a little bit more on the sidelines after that, but it is sort of coming to the end of my cash on the sidelines. Sort of basically thinking this is last chance before a potential run-up starting after the summer for sort of 12 to 18 months. So we'll see. Let me know what you guys are up to at the moment, if you're buying anything, and like and subscribe. See you soon.